Brookes. Hi.
Hello.
Hello. This is Brookes. I am here on a sunny September day with my friend Chelsea.
What up?
What up? To talk about The Great Believers, a novel by Rebecca Makkai. We are excited and we are drinking wine and we have had a long day. So it'll be great to unwind by talking about a great book. Chelsea, anything you want to add?
If you haven't read this book, you should, only for the reason that it is really well written. It is a tearjerker.
Oh, yeah.
And it'll hit you hard. But it is...
Right in the tear ducts.
Yeah. Really ugly cry. Like snot. Lots of it.
Yeah, I heard that from a few people. Like, I ugly cried at the end of this book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did too.
It just makes you have to be ready to go on a deep level of thought afterwards, where you sit there and you're like, what is going on?
Yes. It is existential.
It is.
For sure. There's so much dealing with life and death in here, and like, what is the meaning of life, and like, how are we all here together at the same time, and all that stuff. Yeah. And it does like sort of explode your brain. In a good way, hopefully, but in a sad way.
Yeah. I also think we're, especially if you're like, I hate saying millennial, but if you're like within that realm of between like 20s to mid 30s, I feel like you're a part of this change in the culture where, you know, being gay, trans, and all of the above isn't something that's as weird and not talked about as it used to be 20 years ago. And I mean, the shift has happened, I think, within the last 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
It's become such a change in the acceptance levels, honestly. And it's just crazy when you read this book to think that, like, it just really wasn't that long ago that it was a completely different look into it. Yeah. And how, and I keep referencing, HIV was, in that time, Ebola in our time. Like, it was considered doomsday. Like, people were prepping for, like, the worst of the worst.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah.
Well, let's do a quick plot synopsis for people who maybe haven't read the book or read it but maybe a little while ago and don't remember. I said in the last episode, I was like, oh yeah, we could just read the back. But that's just no fun. Like, someone already did all this work for us. Oh, no. Let's do the work again. The Great Believers by Rebecca Makkai. I think it came out this year, 2019. It's very new. Maybe like late 2018, if not 2019, I'm looking. Okay, yeah, 2019. It is set in Chicago and set in Paris. There's two timelines. So one of the timelines is set in 1980s. It starts in 85 in Chicago. In Boys Town, it follows a group of gay men who are friends who are getting diagnosed with HIV. And a lot of them are dying from it. And then the 2015 Paris timeline follows a woman named Fiona as she searches for her missing daughter, Claire, in Paris. Yes. And they're all connected. Fiona is the younger sister of one of the gay men in Chicago who dies of HIV. That's not a spoiler. It happens like immediately. And I actually think it says it on the back, so yes. I don't feel bad. So it's all, the timelines are connected, but they kind of run parallel, and you switch chapters, like one chapter in 1985 and one chapter in 2015 and one chapter in Chicago and one chapter in Paris, and you jump back and forth. Did I miss anything? Oh, there's like an art thing. There's an art piece of it where they're trying to get this art donated. I don't know. We can talk about that.
I think, honestly, there's really like 3 different stories in a way, because you have this group of gay men and their story. You have the story of Fiona, but then you also have the story of Yale and Nora. And I think that's very crucial to building the growth of each character and kind of Rebecca, the author, was able to put these 3 stories together in my opinion in a pretty seamless fashion. Like, she was able to intermingle them in a way that didn't seem choppy.
Yeah.
And that's and I've discussed in previous books, like, I really hate timeline jumps.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I don't know. It just, like, my brain just doesn't want to function with timeline jumps, especially when I'm reading to, like, turn off.
Yeah.
And just, like, enjoy myself.
It's too hard to keep track of.
It really is.
It's hard, too, if you go a few days between reading.
Yes.
And you can quickly forget, like, where you are and what's happened.
You're like, okay, wait a minute. What time is this?
Mm-hmm.
Who's dead? Who's alive? This is... Wait, what?
Yeah.
So, and I think she did a really good job in... And I don't know if you agree, but I think she did a good job in being very distinct on saying, this is the date, this is the time period, and then the shift. It wasn't ever a shift between time periods without it being very clear and distinct, saying, switch to Paris 2015. So it wasn't so many switches back and forth that you felt chaos.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's true. I think towards the end, and maybe we can talk about this later, but, like, towards the end, it speeds up and more time passes.
Right.
With each jump. So it's like, instead of a few hours or a day, a few weeks go by. And that did confuse me a little bit.
Right.
Like, I felt like things sort of sped up towards the end and it wasn't as... Yeah, time was just passing more quickly, which I did find to be a little bit more confusing. But yeah, overall, I totally agree. I thought the timeline jumps were fine. And I thought the stories were connected enough that it worked for me.
Right.
And we saw a lot of the same characters. Mm-hmm. There's only a couple characters who exist.
Yeah, not so many that you feel overwhelmed. Yeah.
Yeah. And there are a ton of characters in this book.
Yeah.
Like, a lot.
But she did do a very good job in... And... I just want to preface that I listened to the audiobook with this book. Brookes read it. I did the audiobook. I thought the audiobook was amazing. Highly recommend the audiobook. The person who narrates it.
Is that crazy? I've already read it.
No, the person that narrates it is phenomenal. Yeah. And I am so picky with my narrated audiobooks. Like, if the narrator sucks, I will stop it and just lose my money because I'm not listening to that
Listen, they're not
voice.
cheap either, audiobooks.
They're not.
They're expensive.
I will say I found a great site outside of Audible.
Oh, nice.
That's really great. Am I allowed to say it on here?
Yeah, sure.
No? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
Maybe
for all those listeners who like audiobooks, it's called Scribd, and it's SCRIB as in boy, D as in dog, and it's $14.99 a month, which is more expensive than Audible, but it's endless audiobooks.
Oh, so it's not just for one.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, well, I think Audible's $14.99 and you get one.
Yeah, and you only get one.
Yeah.
And so with this script app, I can download as many as I want.
Oh, cool.
Every month. Anywhere from newspapers to magazines to books.
Oh, I've heard of this because it's got more than just books.
And they've got sheet music. If you're a musician and you want to download sheet music, they do have sheet music on there.
Oh, weird.
I love it. Carly, actually. Shout out.
Oh,
what up, Carly?
Carly.
Carly's actually the one that recommended to me, and now I'm obsessed.
Oh my God, cool.
So, anyway, this book was wonderfully narrated. I do feel like the narration was so fluid between male and female characters that there were honestly moments where I was like, wait a minute, did they switch narrators?
Whoa.
Awesome job.
But it was the same person the whole time.
Yeah.
I feel like okay, here's an idea. Maybe this already exists. If it does, someone tell me about it. But what about, like, an audiobook, like, Walk of Fame, like, of the people who are in it? Do you know what I mean? Like, I want to know, like, who are the audiobook stars? There's got to be some people who, like, do, a lot of them and, like, do a great job. Like, can they get famous just like normal actors do?
I think so.
Like, and then it's like, oh, I got to listen to this book because, like, you know, Janine Janine Smith reads it and I love her or whatever. Like, what if you picked your audiobooks based on who reads them?
Right?
That'd be cool.
That would be cool.
Maybe that exists. If that exists, someone tell me because I will check it out. And sometimes, okay, does it ever happen to you that you're like, I know this voice? And then you think like, I've looked back a couple times and been like, have I heard another book that was narrated by the same person?
That hasn't happened to me yet, but I'm excited for when it does.
But I think their voices just sound the same.
Yeah, I think you have to have a sense of like pretty calm and fluid, being able to switch it enough that you're still interesting to listen to, because honestly, listening to somebody talk through a book, like they can either make it really boring and monotonous.
Oh yeah.
Or they can make it very adventurous and imaginative, and that's how I actually did the audiobook for House Castle too. Go on to that podcast for House Castle. It was great. But
that was our August one.
In August,
Shout out.
yes. Shout out to House Castle. But the audiobook for that was awesome too, because they switched into multiple different accents.
Oh my god, accents are so fun. Well, like the French stuff,
amazing.
in this one is Sergei, like
Yes,
super French.
he is.
See, I love that.
Mhm.
Cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice. Because you can't always do the accents in your head. Also, I never know how to say like French words, which is in my mind because I was thinking about Castle of Water today and I was like, oh man, I don't know how to say any of the French words.
No.
So, yeah. Okay, well, Chelsea, that was an excellent plot synopsis. I would say at this point, dear listeners, there shall be spoilers that aren't included in the book cover. And this is a book that you could probably still enjoy if you know what's going to happen. But, it's always more fun to not know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So
I would say turn it off.
This is the spoiler point.
If you're going to read the book, which I highly recommend you do, or listen.
Or listen.
Because I think it's part of the journey. I think you need to do it on your own.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
I really want to hear from people who've read this book who don't live in Chicago.
Yeah. Right?
Because the Chicago part of it was so good. Like, our book club loved it so much.
Yeah,
We
wow.
were here in Chicago.
Was like, it was surreal.
But I wonder, like, people who don't live here, like, do they have the same reaction to the book? I don't know. Well, Chelsea, did you like the book? Yes or no?
So,
do you want me to go first? I liked it. Spoiler alert. I really liked it.
Yeah.
Thumbs up. I liked it.
Yeah.
Okay, your turn.
I liked it.
Oh, good.
For these reasons.
Okay.
And I didn't like it for these reasons.
Okay.
I am one of those people that doesn't ever pick something that's heavy and sad.
Yeah, I know. You don't like sad stuff.
I don't, just because it's just like one of those things when I read, when I watch TV, when I watch a movie, I want to like escape and be like, oh, boop-a-doop, kind of thing.
La la la.
Yeah, but at the same time, I can't not like this book because it was so well written and the characters were so well illustrated, like just by words, that it was like I can't hate on this book. Honestly, I can't, because she did such an amazing job.
Oh, hell yeah.
That I feel like even though I ugly cried, like was at one point had to shut it off because I was like, I'm feeling way too sad. I have to shut this off. But I wanted to keep listening to it. Like, I kept turning it back on because I was like, oh, I have to know. Like, you feel invested in the characters.
You do, yeah. They feel like your friends.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, could be my friends.
Yeah.
And that was the part that made me, I feel like, more invested than I initially thought I would be, because I was picturing my best friends in the situations that this friends group was in, because honestly, like, some of my best friends are gay men, and they're in a group of gay friends that, go out and party the same way these guys describe that they're going to party at the same bars that my gay guy friends go to.
How many of the bars are the same?
I have been to so many of these bars that they have talked about with my guy friends. I'm telling you, it makes it almost at a different level of intense when you're reading it, because it just makes you think to yourself, like, I need to hug.
Oh, yeah.
My friends.
Hug them. Hug them close. Hug them tight. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, it really hit home, this book, because so many of us have lived and celebrated and eaten and had drinks and been with friends in exactly the, you know, bars and restaurants and neighborhoods that this book is talking about. And someone at book club said the other night, like, it's crazy because we just missed this. We missed it. We just missed it. Like, this could have been our friends, and it could have been us. And we just missed it, which is so crazy to think about. What are the major themes of this book?
I feel like there's a lot of good themes, and a lot of them are hidden. I know there are some that are very prominent. There's even more that are hidden in between the lines. And I thought book club was really good in bringing that out, in the sense that one of the main things that I felt in this book was loss, and how people deal with loss. It isn't always positive, but sometimes it is. Like, it's not always a tragic story. Like, sometimes people make something out of it. And other times they don't. And it talked a lot about loss, how people grieve. I think some of the theme of this book was survival, how people are able to survive, knowing that either they might die in a couple months, or they don't have the support that they wish they had.
Yeah.
And it's a weird concept to think about, that what if somebody told you that you were going to die in 4 months?
Right. What would you do?
What would you do?
Yeah.
How would you live your life?
Well, and unfortunately, like, and this probably happens to people today, because it's not like our healthcare system is great. Certainly it's not. But at this time, like, you couldn't just go off and do whatever you wanted, because you needed medicine, and, like, getting the medicine was extremely difficult to do with insurance or without. Like, that part breaks my heart, because it's like, if you're not going to die in 4 months, like, just get the hell out of here. Like, go to Bora Bora. I don't know. But instead, they navigate hospitals and doctor's offices, and they take 85 pills a day, and they, like, do all this insane stuff, you know, to try to prolong their life, which, like, obviously that's like a valid choice to make, and of course you would want to do that, but, like, then you just spend your last days, like, navigating, like, Cook County Hospital. Like, what?
Which is actually a real hospital.
Ugh.
To listeners that don't live in Chicago, Cook County is a real hospital.
Yeah, it's still open today. I was trying to find, there's a quote in here. I think it's Jake, the character of Jake, says it to Fiona, and he says, "The loss of a loss is still a loss."
Yes.
We talked about that at book club, and I thought that was, like, really interesting and cool, and the loss of a loss is still a loss. Like, this is a good theme. Some of the other themes that we said are grief, memory, legacy, family, like, whether it's your biological family or your chosen family. Someone said motherhood, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah, Fiona's part in this story is definitely all about motherhood, because motherhood can be defined in multiple different ways. In this book, Rebecca is able to Rebecca, the author, I feel like I'm saying her name like I know her.
I wish we knew her, Rebecca.
Yeah, I know.
If you're listening
Shout
to this,
out to Rebecca.
call me.
We love you.
We'll go to
think
the bars.
You're an amazing writer.
Yeah.
She does an amazing job in describing motherhood more than a born child.
Yeah.
Like, motherhood is more than that. Like, motherhood is honestly taking on and loving anything, any person, anything. Like, you can be a mother, quote unquote, to multiple things. I can be a mother to my cat.
Oh, yeah, cat mom.
And I am. I can be a mother to my dog. You can be a mother to your friends. And it's like, I think we give people a bad rep that kind of bring on that persona of being like, oh, she's the mom of the group.
Yeah.
But like, legit, y'all need your mom of the group, okay? She's the one that makes sure your drunk ass doesn't go home and die.
Oh, so true.
Right? So you're welcome.
Oh, yeah. She feeds you pizza.
Yeah.
She gets you in bed.
Gives you water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's the one that can we shout out to the moms?
Oh, shout out to
right?
the moms.
The moms of the group.
Yeah.
You know who you are.
It's you. If you don't know who the mom is,
you
it's
are.
You. Yes. Accurate. Okay. Well, as we've said, part of this book is set in Chicago, and it really resonated with us because we live in Chicago, and Chicago is such a great city, and I think it's fun because there's so much media set in like New York and LA and San Francisco, and where it's like, oh, New York is its own character or whatever, and I love having that experience with Chicago.
Yes,
because we're the second city. There's just, I don't know, Chicago just like takes second place all the time to like, oh, New York, and it's like, no, Chicago's cool as hell.
Yeah,
Chicago's got its own thing going on. It's got its own personality. Like, let's like have it be a character in this book, and it is, and it's glorious. And some of my favorite quotes, or actually what I'll just read is, in the afterword of the book, Rebecca Makkai, who is from Chicago, says, "Chicago is, in a way, the great love of my life. I'll never get tired of it, and I'll never get tired of writing about it." And that is so awesome!
Yeah.
I hope she writes another book soon that's set in Chicago and we can read it.
I do too.
It's so fun.
Write another one, Rebecca.
Yeah, Rebecca, write another one. I do wish she had talked more about alleys, because alleys in Chicago are so important, and I love them. New York doesn't have alleys, so it's dirty as shit there, and people just put their garbage on the street.
It's gross.
No, listen, we
New
have
York
alleys.
is gross.
We keep our garbage in alleys where it belongs.
Yes.
So, I love alleys. Shout out to alleys. One other quote I did want to read, actually, on the Chicago bent, is this quote that this book also does a great job of really grounding us in the year that it is, like in reminding us in subtle ways that like there aren't cell phones, and like
yes,
it's 1986 is way different than 2015 like technology wise. And one of the lines that I really like is on page 336. It says, "The way Chicago looked from an airplane window flying in from the east, the only time you could really see the city's face." Which, first of all, that's an amazing sentence, and that's such a cool way to think about the city, of like it's looking east and like its face is the lakefront. That's awesome. And I also like the idea of like in the 1980s, you couldn't just Google a picture of Chicago. Like, you could only see the city's face when you flew into O'Hare and landed over the lake. Like, that's awesome. And what a cool, like, magnificent thing that would be to experience. Like, I have that feeling when I land in Chicago all the time anyway.
Oh my gosh. So it's so funny that you say that, because that part of the book made me think about my favorite part. When I was growing up, I grew up in Pennsylvania. And whenever we would fly into Chicago, because that's where my grandma lived, whenever we would fly into Chicago, I remember my dad would always open up the window, and it would be my favorite part when we would fly in. And I remember looking at the city, and my dad would point out buildings. And at night, when it was all lit up, I just remember being like, this is the biggest city in the world.
Yeah.
But, like, to me, like, that was the only time I could ever see that, because there wasn't Google when I was that age, right?
Uh-huh.
So, not that I'm aging myself.
Unless you had, like, a photograph that a photographer took. You know what I mean? Like, you'd have to have, a printed photograph of, like...
From a plane.
Right.
Because there were no droids, or whatever those drones, or whatever those things are.
Also, you know what I'm just thinking about? In 1985, you could have flown into Meigs Field, which was on Northerly Island. Think about that.
Oh,
that was still operating.
That was before me.
They bulldozed that shit in 2001.
Oh, really?
After 9/11. Oh. Yeah. Daley bulldozed it under the cover of night, and planes came to land the next morning and couldn't because he bulldozed huge X's into the runway.
Oh my god.
Isn't that insane? Yeah, supposedly that's the story. Mm-hmm. It was
Savage.
like for security reasons, but really the city just wanted the land. they say.
Jeez.
Which it's hard to be mad about because, frankly, Northern Ireland is amazing and I love it there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like I'm rich enough to fly in, so I wouldn't have been using it.
Right.
You know.
Sorry, private jets. You have to land somewhere else.
I can remember, we never flew when I was a kid. We just drove everywhere, even if it was like 20 hours away. We just loaded up the van. But I remember coming to Chicago for the first time. My aunt and uncle lived in the suburbs, and we took the train. I remember so vividly the first time we took the Green Line in, and I saw, like, the city rising up, and I just thought, like, this is it. Like the same thing. Like, this is the biggest city in the world. It's the best city ever. Like, I can't wait to live here. I want to live here when I grow up. And now we do. So great job.
Now we do.
Yeah, great Chicago content in this book. Okay, we talked about the parallel timelines. So the stuff about the artwork and Nora's story. So Nora, Fiona's great aunt, I guess?
Great aunt, yes.
Great aunt, and she's got this artwork, and a lot of it is drawings, like, of her time in Paris in, like, the 20s and the teens. And she is naked in a lot of them, which, like, hell yeah.
She was, like, the muse for all of these artists.
Yeah, but she was also an artist herself.
She was.
Which I thought was kind of a cool way to talk about that, she was only the muse because she felt like it was a way to participate in the art that she loved so much. I don't know, which was, like, kind of a cool way to think about it. I feel like artist muses are often portrayed as, like, these aloof, like, beautiful women who do not care, you know what I mean? But she cared a lot.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she just even says that she was the only female in that art school to ever be accepted into that art school at that time.
Right. That's crazy.
Which is wild because I feel like her character, Nora's character, in a way, was a reflection of Fiona to me in a separate time period. She was the bulldozer of her generation. She was very much so proactive in, like, shaping her own life. She didn't care what other women did. She gave zero fucks.
Yeah.
She was literally like, this is who I am, and I'm ready.
Yeah. She was, yeah, maybe, like, Fiona was, you know, they always say, like, it skips a generation or whatever. Like, you end up being a lot like your grandparents or a lot like your, like, great aunts and uncles or whatever. I definitely think, yeah, that's the case here. Like,
definitely,
Fiona was extremely, like, opinionated and strong-willed and independent. Yeah, she was gonna do what she wanted to do, like, no matter what her like family thought or, like, the people around her. Yeah, I agree with that. But what do you think? So, sort of the whole impetus behind Nora wanting to give this art away is because she had this love affair with Ranko Novak, who is a nobody. He's not a famous artist. He doesn't get famous. Nobody knows who he is. He's not that good. He's not, like, you know, a lot of her other paintings are by, like, world-renowned artists that are extremely famous and talented. But she really is doing this because she wants Ranko's work to be on display because she loved him so much.
Yes.
So what is your opinion on their love story?
I think their love story shows Nora's vulnerability, which you never see in the book, ever, except for the time that she talks about Ranko. And it's very interesting to me because in all reality, Ranko just seemed like not that impressive.
Yeah.
Like, he, first of all, wasn't the best looking. And she even says that. He wasn't the best looking. He was really weird. He was always the guy that was just, like, a little bit off and a little socially awkward. But, like, she was drawn to him. And some reason she found him to be her muse. And I think that's something that's very important to point out is, like, it wasn't that she was just his muse. He was also her muse. And I think that just shows what kind of character Nora was throughout her entire life. Like, she was able to love but also not lose herself. Yeah. And I found that to be very impressive. And I think that's what connected her so much to her love character, is because it kind of worked both ways for them. She liked the drama that came with him.
She really liked the drama.
She did.
What does she say? Like, there's what is more romantic than like your lover being locked away or whatever? She's like, I waited for him for a year. Like, she loved it.
She did.
Oh my God, do you think she wrote letters to like prisoners?
Oh, 100%.
She would be one of those.
She's a prison bride.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Just for the thrill of it. She's like an adrenaline junkie.
Yes.
100%.
Hondo. Yeah, because Ranko Novak, he was just kind of like a jerk. He was like a jerk, and he wasn't that talented, and it didn't seem like he treated her that well, but like they had this connection, and
I feel like he was the John Mayer of that time period. Talented, but also like not the best to look at. Really, really weird.
Somehow a total ladies' man.
Somehow. But also, like, at the same time, like, dramatic.
Yeah.
Like, always drama. No matter what, there's always just a little bit of drama that's involved there.
Yeah. Well, and I do think he had, like, Novak has kind of this JFK martyr thing going on. Where it's like, once he killed himself, like, she felt so obligated to, like, carry on his story. Mm-hmm. If he hadn't died, like, I don't think that would have happened. Like, they would have, their love story would have come to its eventual conclusion. She probably would have moved on.
Yeah.
But because it was cut off in the middle like that, like, he became this, like, total figure in her mind that she, like, I mean, and Fiona talks about that too. Like, it was my responsibility to carry on the memory of these people because they died.
Yeah.
When I was close to them. And it was so tragic and it was so horrible. And they were so important and beautiful to me. Like, it is now my job to keep their memory alive. Mm-hmm. And so if he hadn't died, and that's probably true of a lot of Fiona's friends too, like, she wouldn't have done that. She wouldn't have felt the need to do that.
Absolutely.
They would have just been friends that she had in passing or whatever, people she was close to, but, like, isn't that close to anymore, the way that friendships ebb and flow. But, like, because they all died tragically, now, yeah, she's living with their ghosts and carrying them around.
Yeah,
Ooh.
I hated Ranko.
Yeah.
I thought his character was just the worst.
Yeah. Okay. This is a yes or no.
Okay.
That I actually was surprised by the answer at book club.
Oh, okay.
So yes or no, was Nora's family wrong to want to keep the artwork?
I was very surprised by this too.
Yeah.
So my opinion obviously is yes, they were. Mainly because I think, and I don't think Rebecca, when she was writing this novel, hid the fact that, like, Nora's son, what's his name? Frank? Or Bill?
I can't remember. Yeah. Frank, maybe?
Bill? Something.
I don't
know.
remember.
Nora's son is a douchebag.
Donald? No.
He is a douchebag. Like, literally one of those guys that name drops.
Yeah.
He is, picture this. Listeners, picture this. A man in his mid-50s. Tall, broad shoulders, with a really big beer belly.
Frank. It's Frank.
Frank.
Yeah.
Sounds about right. His name is Frank. He still has hair. It's not great hair, but he's trying to hold on to it. He may or may not have a spray tan. He also
Did people get those in the 80s?
drops.
No. He just did straight up tanning beds.
I'm just trying to let them know what to picture in their mind.
yeah.
Because we all know a Frank, okay? We all know a man in his mid-50s who's trying to be that cool guy that name drops and lets you know who he knows so that you know that he's not just a Frank. He is Frank, where you're like, okay, dude, you've got a dad bod and you might think you have money, but it's not all your money, right? Like, you've been
he's the guy who
catered.
insists he, like, did it all himself.
Exactly.
And it's like, nah, man, that's not how any of this works.
Yeah. And, like, he didn't do a damn thing for Nora.
Yeah.
He was always pawning her off on somebody else because she was somebody else's problem. Mind you, this is his mother. But when it came to selling artwork that he found out by accident was a lot of money, he all of a sudden was very invested. And that to me is just slimy. If my family members did that, I would call them out on it. I'd be like, you're slimy.
Yes,
Y'all
slimy.
slimy.
Yes, slimy. Yeah, he says, well, at one point he says, Mother, I'm paying for this house. Have you considered that? You're cutting me and my children out of this money, and you're sitting here in a house I own. And Nora calls his damn bluff, and she's like, are you planning to evict me? Which is amazing. What a good response.
I know.
Fine, kick me out, you little bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I do not disagree with any of the things that you said. He's a dick. He's a douchebag. However, I can't help but think I also would be mad if I found out my mom was going to give away $3 million worth of art.
In the 80s, 3 million.
Yeah.
So today would have been probably double that.
I didn't do the math, but maybe 10 million, 15 million, who knows?
Who knows?
Like, I also would be like, hold on, please. What is the plan? Especially because she's giving it to Northwestern, which is a really expensive, rich private university. Like, all of her grandkids for the rest of time could go to Northwestern on that money. And instead, she's just going to give it all to them.
I would like to be clear, though, that Nora had no close relationship with any of these family members. And I feel like that could have been a big difference.
Who, like, takes care of her?
I don't think they were close.
Yeah, maybe not.
Like, she's giving away these things and not saving anything for these people because Frank sucks. And she full on says that in the book. Like, unfortunately,
that's my kid.
That's my kid.
Isn't
like
he humiliating?
Yeah, is basically saying like, yeah, he embarrasses me.
Yeah.
I don't know what went wrong when we had him, but like he might have been dropped. Like, just a complete jerk.
Yeah.
And maybe if her daughter was Nora, it would have been different. Or if her son was Nico, it would have been different. Yeah. And I think that kind of plays out in the book as far as how she feels towards these individuals that have passion and have empathy and have, you know, the drive to make themselves more than what their family or money can give them. Like, I think Nora would have been different if she had somebody she wanted to give it to that would have appreciated it.
Well, and she does give the jewelry. Like, she gives the jewelry to Deborah. Okay, so let's jump back to 1986.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So all of the chapters are not numbered, which did not bother me when I was reading it, but really bothered me when I was trying to talk about the chapters because I can't tell you what chapter anything is. There is only one chapter in the book that is dated more than just a year. Mm-hmm. So July 15th, 1986. Yes. And this chapter, which actually it's interesting to talk about because we talked about it in book club and it looks different on the Nook book.
Okay.
And looks different in some of the printed versions. So in the version that I have, it's just like individual lines of text. So this is the chapter where Yale he finds out he's HIV positive. Mm-hmm. After he gets the initial negative, then he goes back and gets tested again after sleeping with Roman, and he finds out. And this chapter is super different from everything else. And it's visually impactful when you're reading it because it's not paragraphs, it's individual lines of text, like one sentence at a time, big space, one sentence at a time, big space. And it was kind of disorienting getting to this chapter because it feels so different than the rest of the book, which I'm sure was the intention because we're in Yale's head and he's fainting essentially because he's so like upset by this news and so moved by it. What do you remember this chapter in the audiobook? What was it like?
It was pretty much read the way that you would read that book. Like, for instance, Lake Michigan, impossibly blue, the morning light bouncing towards the city. Lake Michigan, frozen in sheets that you could walk on but wouldn't dare. Lake Michigan. So each time that a line was read, there was a pause in order for it to be dramatic.
Yeah.
And to be, oh, wait, when you're listening to it, like, geez, this is important kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like,
okay.
there was drama
So
in
it really
it.
stuck out to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's good. Because I thought, I mean, this chapter is insane. It's so sad. And it's, yeah, I think disorienting is a really good word because it doesn't fit. We're in like different tenses throughout, different tenses than the rest of the book is in. Sometimes it's just one word. Oak trees, music, breath. Like, there's some stuff that's italicized. So everything Dr. Chang says is italicized, which we don't see anywhere else. Which gave it to me almost this feeling of like underwater. Like he's hearing Dr. Chang from underwater. You know, like your ears are ringing and your body is buzzing and like you've got all this adrenaline, but also you feel faint. Like, you know what that feeling is like.
Yeah. That's a good description, yeah.
And that was sort of how so it's like Dr. Chang's talking to him and he's probably looking at him and he's trying to listen, but he's like got all these million thoughts running through his head and he kind of can't. He just can't focus on it. And then it ends with Dr. Chang said, "Whoa there, let's lie down. Let's get you lying down."
Yeah.
So he's clearly like, he's hyperventilating, he's losing his breath, like he's got to lay down. God, that chapter is just like rip your
I know.
heart
I
out.
just felt nauseous for a minute because I just like, whew.
Yeah. Thinking about that. Yeah, so that's an amazing chapter. And again, that starts on page 334 for anyone who wants to look it up.
Especially if you live in Chicago, like this chapter is very intense because it kind of talks about the best parts of Chicago that you might do or talk about or see every day. But if it was about to be your last time, what would you think?
Yeah.
You know, like all of the things, if you found out you're going to die in a couple months, what are the things that would immediately pop in your head that you're like, this might be the last time I do this or do this, you know? And I mean, this is the chapter that I like lost my shit when I was reading.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the foods that hadn't yet made their way to America, the things he hadn't tasted that everyone would be crazy for in 10 years. Avocado came to mind for me. And that's a fun thing to think about, too, of like, all right, what are we going to be eating in 10 years that we've never eaten today? That,
it's true.
Is going to get so popular.
Like, what is going to be the avocado toast
of
our generation?
Right. I mean, I think avocado toast is the avocado toast of our generation.
But, like, what's going to be next generation?
Right, yeah, what's next? It'll probably be something, like, something weird like Tide Pods, but they're not Tide Pods, but you eat them and they're like...
Papaya leaves?
I don't know.
Papaya on a leaf?
Papaya leaves?
I don't know.
I just hope it's... Whatever it is, I hope it's better than kale.
Ah, fuck kale. It's the worst.
Kale. Hey, Chelsea, who is your favorite character?
My favorite character was Asher.
Oh, really? See, I felt like I kind of couldn't get a handle on Asher. Like, I didn't know what his deal was.
I loved Asher.
Okay. I mean, he was a dreamboat. What a heartthrob.
I feel like I really relate to him because, one, I'm kind of a dreamboat.
Oh, yes.
But also, like, he was like a fighter, like, to his core.
Yeah.
And I see that in myself so much that I've had to tone it down throughout my life. But in these different conversations and these different parts of the book that we see Asher, I like feel like I'd be like, yeah, that's what I would do too. I'd be like, I would be the one that would stand up at the parade and be like, hey, listen, we are here. We are ready. Like, come on. Like, people are dying.
Yeah.
Like, listen, you like guys in these suits that keep saying like, oh yeah, we're going to give money. But never do. Like, here we are. Like, watching my best friend get beat and stomped on and trampled on, like, you better believe that I would be arrested. Like, I would be the first one to jump in there.
Oh, yeah.
And literally start throwing some bows.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the injustice that was shown there and the fight and the drive that he had was just kind of spoke to me in a way that, like, my like claws, my like mama bear came out a little bit, where I was like, I would do the same exact thing.
Mm-hmm.
If my friends were in that situation, I would do the same exact thing. Like, I would be the first person in the front. But also Deborah.
Yeah.
Good old Deborah.
Oh, really?
Let's shout out to Deborah.
Aww.
Deborah's the nurse that took care of these poor...
Oh, you're right. I think I said
people.
Deborah was... Who's Debbie?
Debbie. Is the niece.
The niece.
Or the
That's who I mixed them up. You're right.
niece.
So
Yes.
Debbie is the niece who gets the jewelry.
Yes.
And Deborah is the nurse. Yeah.
Is the nurse that takes
Thank
care
you.
of these men at Cook County. And that is actually based on a true character. Would like to throw that out there. She
that's
actually
right.
wrote a graphic
novel, yeah.
novel about her experience in the 80s being a nurse on the HIV unit. And this woman is just a badass bitch. Like, she literally did not go home so that she could sit there and be the person that held the hand of these people that died. That was her job. She held the hands of people that died, that didn't have family that came, or that didn't have friends that were there. And I find her to be fascinating, and I bought her book.
You did?
I did.
Oh, I want to read it next.
I'll give it to you when I'm done.
Okay, yes, please
Yeah.
do. Well, I think...
What about you? What was your favorite?
Oh, my favorite character. Well, I feel vapid as hell saying this now after you had all these like really great reasons for liking Asher, liking Deborah, but I liked Sergey, who was the
Yes.
the
relief.
young pup of Richard Campo. He was like a PR person. Shout out to PR people. He was like fun as hell. He drove a motorbike. He was super French. Like, what a cutie. I loved him. He was really funny. He was really helpful and sweet also. Like, he was a great host, consummate host. But I don't know. He was a good character. I hope if they make this into a movie, they don't cut him out.
He was I felt like he was needed in the book.
Yeah.
Because he was like the comic relief.
He was a good balance to Fiona, who was
Yes.
extremely intense.
Yes.
Yeah.
The whole book is intense. So you needed to have those comic reliefs throughout, which I think she did a couple times between like Teddy and, Julian and all of them. Like, I feel like that you need to have that little bit of comedic relief in order to break the intensity.
Yeah, that's definitely true. It's a pretty intense book. Okay, well, given what you just said, I think we should end on... so in the back of the book, if you have a hard copy version, there's an afterword, which is a brief interview with Rebecca Makkai. And one of the questions is, as a cisgender heterosexual woman, why was this an important story for you to tell? How are you able to lift up the voices of the LGBTQA community? And what she says is amazing. It's like, I thought about this a lot, if it was appropriate for me to tell this story, and I ultimately decided I would do it if I could first of all, do a really good job and do the story justice, which I think we agree she does.
Yes.
And then secondarily, will this book detract from the narratives of those who live through the crisis or help readers discover those stories? And then she goes on to say, I do want people to come away knowing, thinking, or feeling more about AIDS than they have previously. I don't want them to stop with my book. I want this to be the beginning of a lot more reading and conversation about what people remember from that time. And I think she has done this because you just
100%.
bought another book on this topic.
Yeah.
And we've all been talking about it. I have been doing a ton of Googling about like what are current HIV laws. In the U.S., they're pretty upsetting. They're not great. There's like 28 states that still criminalize not even like the passing of HIV, but simply the act of unprotected sex if you have HIV. The laws are still like pretty discriminatory in a lot of cases, and there's a ton of stigma still attached to this illness, even though, as we said in book club and we've talked about, it's no longer a death sentence.
Right.
Technology has come a lot, and medicine has come very far since this book was written. Luckily, it still took far too long, obviously. But, it's not the death sentence that it was, but there's still a hyper stigma attached to it.
Absolutely.
And so it's important that we talk about this. We really, really, we want to be allies in the space. We don't want to co-opt anyone's stories or speak for them. But, Chelsea and I and all of the Books with Brookes book club members, we want to be allies. We want to be aware and be knowledgeable and be educated on these topics, and support our friends who are going through it or who will in the future or who are impacted in any way. So I just want to say that. And how much we enjoyed getting to know these characters and getting to know more about the AIDS crisis and I guess art in Paris, although that was kind of secondary and I still don't know how to say all those artists' names. Modigliani.
That was like the least that I took from this book. Like, I was like, what? Okay.
Yeah. I guess we can end. Okay, let's end on a really great note, which is on page 401. Julian says, "But listen, you two are on the planet at the same time. You're in the same place now. That's a miracle. I just want to say that." And it is.
It is.
Chelsea, it's a miracle that we're here and that I figured out how to work this microphone and that we're recording this podcast together.
It is.
And maybe a couple people we know will listen to it.
Yay!
Yay!
Listen.
Listen. Go get The Great Believers. Check it out. We loved it. Highly recommend. I will lend my copy to anyone who would like to read it. So just contact me. Books with Brookes on Instagram. And talk to you later.
Bye.
Books with Brookes is in the Press Play Podcast Network, and our theme music is by Jonathan Allen.